So hey, welcome in, beautiful beings. I haven't done an interview for ages, so I'm really excited to welcome back Rachel Maria Bell. So for those of you who have been maybe following my channel for a while, you will remember Rachel came on to talk about her Bronte journey and the connection with the Brontes, which was absolutely fascinating, Rachel. Rachel's a past life visionary and astrologer, and today we are going to be talking about John Lennon, which I'm dead excited about. So welcome in, Rachel.
Thank you, Lindsay. And thank you for giving us this platform, because I get very tongue-tied quite frequently with the volume of information that I receive, and that tends to occur on multiple levels. Yeah, so one thing I will just say, the reason I'm a past life visionary is because basically I've spent 7 years communicating with spirit, and that was really a lot about me being able to see past lives, see my in-between lives, kind of piece together what we've been doing across this big journey across thousands of years. And you know, it's been a really unfolding journey across a long period of time. And sometimes, you know, I know that you are extremely good at being able to go, hey, I was in the bath and Winston Churchill appeared and here's the message for the public. It doesn't quite come through like that for me, because there's so many multiple layers happening all the time. Quite often I'm seeing back into a past life of my own, healing that, bringing through detail and information so that I can help other people with that journey. So it's felt very long, and sometimes I feel like I'm in the middle of a very long piece of channeled information and a big body of work. So it doesn't feel very intuitive and natural for me to just go, boom, here's some information for the public. And I also feel that you know, because everybody's at a very different level of awakening and on their own personal journeys, that sometimes the information could be really not okay for some people, or you know, potentially even dangerous in the wrong hands. So yeah, there are quite a lot of blocks there sometimes for me in actually speaking out, but I really appreciate the fact that you've given us this platform. And I say us because John was like, ta-da, I'm on. Just go say stuff. You know, what you say will be right, just do it.
Yeah, I love it. And what I like, I think one of the things I've loved, Rachel, about watching your journey is like going from that moment where you're like, I think like I might have been like a Bronte in a past life, and then just sort of like really like understand how John Lennon came in, you know, and watching and listening for me to your story has allowed, like, it's inspired me to be more open as well about past life stuff and about these connections that are coming through. So thank you very much for sharing. So let's just start at the beginning. When did John Lennon first come through for you? Like you said, it's been 7 years, but can you remember the first time he came through to you?
Yeah, and funnily enough, it's a story connected. He likes to give me props. It's a story connected with this little coaster. And I bought this coaster from a local shop in Scarborough as a present for somebody. But because, you know, when we suppress information, we suppress things about ourselves or feelings that we just kind of go, I can't handle that, so I'm chucking it down. Well, I did that, and I'd done that with the Beatles all my life. It was like, yeah, the Beatles are like somebody, they're a group of people I don't deal with. You know, I'll just do anything except deal with them. And there was a reason for that, but I didn't know it. And my life went to shit in April 2015. Things have been bumping along quite badly for a while, but then it was like a massive big thing happened, which was false allegations were said about me that became out there. So the public shaming aspect of my journey came out. And everything felt like, oh my God, my life's just, you know, awful. It's terrible. What am I going to do? It was really bad. And I wasn't on an awakening journey at the time, really. By that time, I did know myself to be capable of spirit communication, but I wasn't contextualizing it, wasn't grasping anywhere near my journey. And it just so happened that around the same time I'd bought this, and because I didn't deal with the Beatles, I shoved it in my tea towel drawer, I hid it. And it's very like representative of what we do with our emotions. You know, you can't handle something, hide it, chuck it down. And then one day when I was getting the tea towels out, I was like, oh, here they are. And I remember standing in my conservatory at home and just going, come on. I was really forceful with myself. I had a word with my inner being. I said, why is it that you can't look at a picture of the Beatles, Rachel? What's going on? And instantly the words came back. It's because John Lennon was in my family. And I went, what? Wow, it was quite a big thing to cope with, because my rational mind went, well, no, I wasn't in John Lennon's family, right? And I wasn't understanding ourselves as eternal beings, as souls that reincarnate over multiple lifetimes. So I couldn't contextualize at the time. I have lived multiple past lives with the soul who I now call John Lennon, because that's his most recent incarnation. Yeah. But I'm just going to give over to John now and kind of say, right, okay, what he wants people to know in a public sense is that for the past almost 41 years since he's been in spirit, he has been extremely busy, and he has had an objective to wake people up. Awakening has been John's thing that he does. And he's been
I'm going all goosebumpy, and I really want to cry, because I keep doing this at the minute. Like when someone says something that is so true, I'm just getting these all over body shivers and then just bursting out crying, and I'm like,
it's okay. So he has been working with lots and lots and lots of people to wake them up, to come into remembrance of their past life with him. And he has lived so many past lives, I don't have a number, and I wouldn't even want to put a number on that. I've been surprised at many junctures and many new parts of my journey. I keep doing this at the minute. It's like there's a heart expansion. It's like when a new piece of information comes in, it's like a pressure valve goes on the heart. So you go from that bound up, constricted, fearful feeling to, wow, this is incredible. And he's been doing this with a number of different people, generally women that I know so far, but that's not exclusive to women at all. And quite a lot of people who've written books about their past life with the person who subsequently incarnated as John Lennon.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what his purpose has been. Yeah. So that's one thing. Right. Where else are we going? Okay. I'm just going to go to last week, if that's okay. Yeah, because as soon as you had said, would you like to come and chat with me about John, he appeared, I was just sitting on the sofa, and he's like, now the way that John tends to appear to me is quite often like a cheeky, busy, energetic little brother. But then that's who he was to me the last time we were in a family relationship in the Brontes, because I was the eldest Bronte sister and he was my little brother, Brownwell. So we do have that big sister, little cheeky brother relationship. And we've had a number of different relationships over different lifetimes, but there is still that kind of cheeky brother vibe that he brings to me, which I like. And there have been times when I've been at a very, very low place in my life, and he has come in and like said shit to me in the middle of the night, like paperback writer or Eleanor Rigby, and I'm like, John, not now. But he's funny, and he can, humor brings you out of a dark place quite often.
Yeah.
So what was I going to say? Oh yeah, a few days ago he came in while I was sitting on the sofa, and he said, why don't you look up when the first shot was administered? And I kind of went, it just kind of went through me a little bit, because he'd said the word shot. But you know how it is when you hear words, but you also hear another level. So I knew that what he meant was, have a look at when the first vaccination was administered in the UK. I knew that that's what he meant, but his words were, why don't you look up when the first shot was administered? So I looked it up and I went, well, you what? It was the 8th of December last year. That's the anniversary of his death. And I went, oh, wow. Yeah, so I had not noticed this, but that's what he came in and said. Now, on that day, that was the 40th anniversary of John's death. And on that night, when I went to bed, I heard this booming voice say to me, 40 days and 40 nights. And it made me feel a little bit weird, because when I hear a booming voice, there's quite often a biblical reference to pick up.
Yeah.
And obviously 40 days and 40 nights refers to Jesus, the temptation of Jesus in the desert. And then I was like, I'd not noticed the connection between the vaccination and this event. I just noticed, oh gosh, here's a booming voice reference again. So last week I was then guided to look this up, which happens to be the book of Matthew, chapter 4, verses 1 to 11. So I'm like, oh, 4s and 1s again, because you know that I do get a lot of number signs. So I'm just kind of mulling all of this over. And then Jesus appeared. Now, I've not seen Jesus for 2 years. Jesus would normally come in if I was in a really bad place, and he was like blasting away any negative energy with bright white light. That's my experience with Jesus. Or when I was ill, he would put his hand on my womb. So then last week, to have both Jesus and John Lennon, it was like John will act as a chaperone sometimes. So he'll bring in another spirit, and I'm kind of going, okay, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
But actually, like I say, sometimes the messages appear on multiple levels, and extracting what I'm meant to share can be not that easy.
Yeah.
But overall, what I kept thinking was, actually their messages are so similar about love and about peace. So John, war is over, all you need is love, power to the people. And actually it's very Jesus-like.
Yeah, they are very similar messages, and that's so interesting though, Rachel, because I don't know if you saw my post on Facebook, but I had my first vision of Jesus last week as well.
Oh no, I didn't know.
So no. I woke up about 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30, and I was just lying here, and all of a sudden in my mind's eye I could see Jesus, and I was like, never seen you before. I was like, thanks, I was like, I can't believe you just appeared in my caravan, as you do. But the message was very much around sort of how his purpose is the messages he was sharing had been so taken out of context and misconstrued in the Bible. And what he was saying was that he wasn't telling people that he was the Son of God. He was telling people that they had the power within themselves to heal themselves. They had the power to be free. So you think of the time, with King Herod and the heresy, he was trying to share with people sort of like, this idea, this message that they are free beings, they are sovereign beings. But King Herod didn't like that, and they were like, oh, this man, he's trying to get the people to rise up, etc. So yeah, and it was really interesting because there was a spark of white flashing light as well after he'd gone, and I was like, oh, sorry. And so just sort of like the synchronicities as well. I mean, between me and you as well, often we've had sort of the same people come through at the same time. It's just amazing. And I think you're right, in terms of with John Lennon, the messages he was sharing through his music and his words touched so many people, and continue to do so to this day.
That's right, absolutely. And yeah, I kind of come back to this because the whale and orca elders, this is, by the way, from Rebecca Campbell's Starseed Oracle deck. But the whale and orca elders, it's my understanding that whales, for me, they have this connection with the planet Sirius. I barely know what I'm saying here, but they have a connection with the planet Sirius. So does Jesus. So does John. And there's a big connection between ancient Egypt and different ancient belief systems, and what many of us trained for lifetimes, and what we know and are coming back into remembrance of. So another message really for everybody is that if this information comes through to you, whatever comes through, trust yourself. Don't trust thousands of years worth of patriarchal oppression. Trust you and your own abilities, because there are so many spiritual fears that I feel that people don't even understand our spiritual fears. It's like we don't get that far. We kind of go, bury it in the tea towel drawer. Yeah, we don't get there, do we? So a big, even though it might not sound much, a big event for me was saying, why can't you look at a picture of the Beatles? Because you know what? I asked a question, I got the answer back. Ask and it is given.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I think, like you said, like, especially like if you're new to this and all of a sudden you hear a voice, it can freak you out a little bit, can't it? I remember way back in like 2010, I think it was, I was on my honeymoon, and I remember I was lying in this beautiful place in the Maldives, but I was worrying about skidding on ice because I'd had a crash before I'd left, and so my mind was not in the right place, and I just heard this booming voice go, "Fear not the unknown," and I was like, who said that? And I'm looking around, and I'm like, where did that voice come from? And when you first start to get this stuff, you can feel a little bit like, I think I'm going crazy because I've heard a voice, or I've seen a vision, or, something's come in. So like you said, though, it's about trusting yourself, isn't it? And like, how did you find, like, like you said, when you get so much information through, do you tend to write it down? How do you tend to work through that?
Well, I used to be always writing it down, and that's something that John used to say to me specifically. He was like, write down the dates, write down the message, write anything you see. Now recently I've gone back to this like book that I'm meant to be writing that will probably run into many, but it was in early 2017 that I suddenly went, oh, yeah, I'm going to write a book. And then it was like putting that conscious pressure on myself to kind of go, what am I going to put in the book? What's the punchline? What's the story? And I didn't realize at that time that I needed to lean back into that feminine space and just say, you're living the story, Rachel. Actually, let it be, let it unfold, and then the story will emerge. And that has happened. And it was funny, I went back to some of the things that I'd written in 2017 when John was around a lot. I went back to it last week and I was going, oh my goodness, there are things I wrote down from dreams or things that he told me that I was going, I don't know what you're saying or why I'm seeing this. I'm writing it down, and then now I understand it because something has later happened. So we don't always get context until we go round in that sort of spiraling thing that life does. It is so not linear, is it? It's like, no, we go round with the same energies until we it's like going sort of spinning upwards, really, isn't it? And then we'll have a deep dive down, retrieve something else, and then we'll keep going round. So more often now I actually have I just have a little record app on my phone, and I speak into it because it's much quicker. And sometimes I keep making a mental note to go back to all my voice recordings and write them up, but there's too much. I don't get a chance.
Bless you. So as well as John Lennon coming through, like, have you had others come through as well, to connect with you and to share any messages about sort of what's going on at the minute?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So like I say, he does sometimes act like a chaperone. And earlier this year, I had an encounter with Emperor Constantine, which really freaked me out. I got a terrible pain in my head, in my crown before he came through. It felt so big for me to bring a message through from somebody of that stature. I always go through this. I always go through, who am I to be receiving these messages? Like, stop it. They're coming through, get on with it. So John appeared, and also Guy Fawkes was there as well. So this took place in York. So it was really funny, and John was like singing these lyrics to me, but to a different tune. He does all sorts of things, and he could sing one line and I'll be there like making sense of it 3 months later. But anyway, yeah, there seems to be a real correlation between spiritual fears and suppression of, you know, our true divine nature. And I get shown what has happened at various points in history. So there are various key turning points in history. So for example, Emperor Constantine was the person who ordered the bishops to meet at the Council of Nicaea, where the Nicene Creed was developed. So basically that's 17 centuries ago, and we've all been saying the Nicene Creed for so long. And even people now who will say, well, I'm agnostic or I'm atheist, but hang on, your grandparents and their parents running through family lines were probably saying this creed, and therefore it's spilled into all parts of your life that you're not even aware of. And I've got Emperor Constantine there basically holding his head in his hands and saying, tell them, Rachel, reincarnation is a fundamental facet of your existence.
Wow.
And, you know, this whole religious suppression is the very furthest thing from the teachings of Jesus, actually.
Yeah.
So whilst with anything, there is always a good intention, and then how humans can also fuck it up. Everything, you know. With anything, you can take technology, say, wow, look at how we can use technology for good, and look at how it can be used for bad. You can pick anything, can't you? So I've had a lot of looking back into systems of when people were told what to do, say, think and believe. I've also had Sir Francis Bacon come in since Saturday tea time, and he's showing me about the intersection between politics, science. He was the founding father of the scientific method. So he's saying to me, and you know, and again, I go through this whole thing, which is I'm not good enough to I'm not worthy enough to be able to listen to Sir Francis Bacon. And then I'm like, come on, he's trying to speak to you for a reason.
Yeah.
And what these people have in common is having lived very significant lives in history and been there at the turning points in history. And we are at a critical turning point in history now. So that's the similarity. And we are working at the intersection of spirituality, philosophy, science, medicine, literature, and coming into these spiritual skills and understanding that power does not exist outside of ourselves, it exists within us.
Yeah.
And I'm being shown, for whatever reason, various turning points. And Sir Francis Bacon came in to show me when the King James Bible was produced, the authorized English translation of the Bible, 1611. He actually showed me into the room when I woke up this morning, and I was like, oh yeah, this is Jerusalem Chamber. For some reason I thought it had burnt down. It's still there. I've just been on the Westminster Abbey website. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I feel that there's a number of things going on. There is a lot of secrecy. So there's a lot of secrecy, secret societies and secret codes being used. I am sometimes shown this kind of stuff, but because it's secret, I'm not about to say it on YouTube. So I kind of have to go, right, okay, that's a secret thing. So I am just going to say that if anybody is shown this kind of stuff or works with any of these kind of people or is thinking along these lines, feel free to get in touch. I don't have all the information. I believe that when we work together in our own lane, doing our own thing, we're going to have the best impact. And, you know, these are times for empowering people on an individual level. And I really believe that we are going through a mass spiritual awakening. And a spiritual awakening is messy and painful and awful and sends us into confusion and spin. And quite a lot of people are now experiencing that confusion, but on a big level. You know, if you wanted to see it like this, there is a hell of a lot of cognitive dissonance around.
Yeah, definitely.
Between what we are being told and, you know, what's really going on, and what we're feeling. And actually, the bit that I did write down that Sir Francis Bacon said, sorry, I'm just going to have a look at what I wrote down just so that I don't like say crap. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he said this: I ask the public to ask themselves this question merely for reflection. You do not have to be a scientist to understand the following. Do you feel your concept of what science is has changed these past couple of years? People have been asked to believe in science by the government and media, but science is not a belief system, nor is it static. Science is about the study of all the facts, not some of them. It's about eliminating bias, keeping on, asking questions, and being skeptical. Scientists are meant to argue with each other and challenge each other's thinking when new material appears. Ask yourself, where are the arguments? Why is information being suppressed? Science is about ongoing, rigorous testing, making adjustments, improving and changing your thinking. If you expect to see debate and find in its absence dogma, then that is not science. That comes from a different agenda. And then he said in his lifetime, he was accused of political corruption and he resigned his position because of the accusation. And then he went on to say, how are your politicians serving you at this time? And he noted that the problems in Parliament during the 1620s were a precursor for civil war. History is not separate from us, he says. It is us.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting thing, that final bit, because, and I think I've said this to you before, Rachel, where it feels like we're rewriting history. And it's like there's these history books that tell us what these people did, you know, and that they were killed because of this. But then they've been coming through, haven't they, to say, actually, what you've been told isn't exactly true. So, and I found it interesting again, you know, Guy Fawkes last week. So I had a client on Sunday morning, and on the Saturday evening, I'd started watching that V for Vendetta, which I think you'd watched previously. Anyway, so me and my client were sat there, and I literally just got again in my ear, remember the 5th of November. And I was like, why would this come through whilst I'm with my client? So I just happened to mention afterwards. And he said, I watched V for Vendetta last night. And I was like, me too. I was like, you know, and I just thought, first of all, that's synchronicity. And then when we went on the Freedom March on Saturday in York, I just happened to look up and noticed that where we were standing was actually next to the Guy Fawkes Inn. So there's this, you know, and again, I was reading into sort of like the story about Guy Fawkes, how we were taught that he was guilty, but then there's been other investigations done which has said, well, maybe he was just an innocent bystander. So it's really about sort of like listening to what they're bringing through, isn't it? And then it's like we're also then having to be detectives in a way and going and finding out the stories and where they're guiding us to. Do you feel that?
Yes, I do. I also feel that what I've kind of changed my opinion on in this past couple of years is that the majority of people are reincarnated. There are a hell of a lot of us on planet Earth right now. So I keep seeing that there are many of these leaders of the past. They are not separate from us. They're walking around. You know, Richard Lionheart could be out there at the bus stop, okay?
Yeah,
I'm serious. I'm really serious. And there's another point I just need to make on this as well, that because we've been kind of brainwashed into quite a lot of history being, you know, black and white, we'll know quite a lot of women who are very intuitive are either picking up on from each other, or they're just going back to one past life where they were a witch and they were burned at the stake. And I understand that a lot of people are going to come into that awakening. But what I want to say to anybody who's got that in their heads, if you're an old soul, you have likely been around the block so many times that you have been the persecutor as well as the persecuted. So let's just not be so like, I was such a goodie in all my past lives. Bullshit. That is separation again. It's making somebody else wrong and you right, and it's bullshit. So what I see is there's a lot of women stepping up into positions of spiritual leadership who had very big past lives in other ways, you know, who may have been military leaders. So we're all working on different kind of agendas at different points in time. So I do believe that the reason why I've got, say, I've been drawn back into this sort of early 17th century Parliament quite a lot, because what I'm being shown is that state of consciousness that was revolving around Parliament then, that's in our Parliament now. They've not moved on. There are many of us who are like the 400-year later version of that consciousness. People in Parliament now are 400 years behind that. So everybody's just at a point on this wheel, if you like. I can't remember what your original question was. There's like so many things coming in.
I do find that really interesting, which I said, like, because there is stuff that is coming up, and it's come through to me, stuff about, the Great Fire of London in the 1600s, and it's as if, and I kept seeing a picture of the plague doctor as well, everywhere for ages, so there's definitely, it feels like some sort of parallel that's going on now between what we're going through and, like you said, that 1600 time period where there was the plague and the fire, and there seems to be a parallel between it, and I don't know if that's why sort of like we're getting guy folks coming through and being drawn to that time period, but it's as if like maybe with that, like it's because there's different decisions and different things that need to be done this time around as opposed to then.
Yeah, there's a lot of healing to be done, and I will be honest with you, Guy Fawkes was a very, very gentle soul when he came into me. And I tell you, by bonfire night, I was really saying to people, don't burn Guy Fawkes, stop it.
Yeah,
stop doing that, why are we on this constant repetition year after year? We just keep burning one guy. There was like 8 of them at least anyway. But in those days, there was so much that was uncompromising. Hey, you don't agree with those in power, fucking get executed. I'm sorry, we have to do better than that. These are the days when we have to choose better.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's just not that long ago that our families have experienced war. And when we say that that's a long time ago, as though it's nothing to do with me, then we're being silly, because it's everything to do with us. We were doing something. We were all doing something in the First World War, in the Second World War, even if we were in spirit guiding or ushering souls. We've been doing something. We all have conscious awareness of this kind of stuff. And I do think that a lot of children as well are, particularly those born in this millennia, are predisposed to remember far more than adults are. So I do think another thing, we do need to be, I know that you are, but, very, very much questioning and listening to our children and taking seriously what they say, because they remember, they're closer to spirit than us. They've been there more recently.
Yeah, I saw something on the TV last night which resonated as well. It was this guy was talking, and he was saying about how some people are like hypersensitive to noise, and there's a lot of children that are diagnosed with being autistic, I think it is, if there's so much noise going on around them. And I was like, well, maybe the reason is because they're vibrating at a different frequency, and the frequencies that are like in the cities or from other people on resonating with their frequency, so that's then causing some sort of like misalignment in the hearing, and that's why it can be overwhelming, because they're picking up on other people's vibrations. And I was like, it's interesting when you start to see things from a different perspective, isn't it? So there are, like you said, I think my children have spoken to me about their past lives when they were younger, but it's about giving them that space, isn't it, to do so, and not dismissing it.
Absolutely. I mean, when I reincarnate next time, I want my mum to take me to mystery school. I don't want this bullshit. I don't want this repression. I don't want this silence. I don't want to be the little girl in church who can hear Mary, Mother of Jesus, but I've got to listen to a fella at the front in a frock telling us about what he believes about what St. Paul meant when he wrote a letter to the Corinthians. Like, come on. Why do we want all that rigmarole? We've got these abilities ourselves.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's what's going on now, isn't it? We don't need all the rigmarole, we don't need all the dogma, we don't need all the patriarchal control.
Yeah.
The power is within us, all of us. Yeah, and it totally is power to the people. So the more that we can help each other to go through these very messy, awkward, horrible processes of awakening and experience the joy when we come through that, the better, you know. And I do think that this is a real time when we can start building for the future. So many people have got visions about what they want this world to be. Let's get on with doing it, I say.
Yeah. Yay, definitely. So just in like a parting way then, Rachel, so is there anything else that John Lennon would like to bring through? Any words that he would like to say?
I think you know them through his songs, really. I mean, the biggest thing for me was always let it be. So whatever it is, and that is a really powerful message, because let it be is really good for coming into your own heart space. Drop down into your heart space, spend time just being, you know, that's what we're here to do, be. Let it be. And let the truth of what you're able to see, feel, hear, let that be. And then, you know, I mean, it's like treating this as a scientific experiment in a way, isn't it? But coming into the truth of believing ourselves and knowing our own self-worth, trusting ourselves, trusting all these abilities we were born with. We are amazing. We're far more amazing than we ever thought we were.
Exactly, I know, and it's so cool though. Like, I find it fascinating just seeing everyone's like abilities progressing, you know, and like during this journey, the people that I've met and spoken to, you know, and just seeing it's like just blossoming, do you know what I mean? And coming out and speaking the truth and going, actually, this is something that's coming through, you know. To me, it's just amazing to see, and I love it. And it's like, we can be us again.
Yeah, we knew when we came here, we knew this is what we got to do. And then we spent a long time going, what? And then it's like we're coming back into it as adults going, oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, I think it's an order, you know, remember the 5th of November. I think it's an instruction. Just remember.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So if anyone wants to come and find you, Rachel, where's the best place for them to come and find you?
Either on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It's all I'm there as Rachel Maria Bell. So I do intuitive astrology. I offer readings and coaching. I use astrology to support what I do, because it's such a great descriptor of the soul. But also, you know, I'm really at that point of offering spiritual help to overcome whatever it is that's the block. And people have got very diverse journeys, haven't they?
Definitely. And I always recommend, like, whenever I talk about astrology now, I'm like, I have a very basic overview, but I'm like, you need to go and speak to Rachel if you're into astrology, you know. So I'm always sending people your way, in the hope that, like, if that's a tool that they're interested in, you know, then I know you can help them with that. So thank you so much, Rachel, for coming and speaking today. And
thanks for having us.
Thank you to John as well. Thanks, dude.
Thanks, John. Thanks for everything. 3:33. I love waking up at that time, mate. Thanks.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.